Hi guys, my name is Yuna. Welcome back to my channel. And today we have a special guest today, Dr. Campbell. Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Hello, I'm Dr. Matthew Campbell. I'm an instructional associate professor here with the College of Performance, Visualization, and Fine Arts. You and I have had some conversations about dealing with and managing and coping with autoimmune diseases and the challenges that poses, especially within the context of academia. So I'm here to talk about that.
Yeah, so I'm in your class, Perf 330 Public Scholarship, and we're on this assignment about podcasting and how to do that. And it's very nice to be able to talk to you about what I'm passionate about, which is medical and faith advocacy for people that are struggling with any kind of mental health or chronic illness. And our first conversation that we talked about is like chronic illness. Like we have this kind of like common thing with like neurology, kind of neural like disease. So mine is myasthenia gravis, which is like a chronic illness that the autoimmune disease attacks your immune system and like basically creates antibody that attacks your nerves connection between your muscles that fatigues your muscle body parts. And what your autoimmune disease is?
And I have relapsing remitting multiple sclerosis, and similarly, if you suffer from this disease, one's immune system attacks what's called the sort of myelination within nerve endings, which exposes portions of the nerve that aren't supposed to be, which means that signals don't travel where they're supposed to, and it can have a variety of different symptoms, from paralysis to blindness and vision issues, to mobility.
Right. So I think the common thing here is like it affects our like vision wise. It does affect, for me it's like double vision, and I struggle with like other muscle fatigueness, like chewing, swallowing, like anything that's like voluntary muscles. Like it can affect your breathing even. But yours is more like it can cause blindness, right?
Yeah, well, and so I was reading up on your condition, and they're both very similar in that they attack the nervous system, which means that the signals that you're trying to get across don't necessarily make it, and so your muscles might not respond in time, or they may not respond correctly. And the same thing sort of happens with MS, is that because these nerve endings are exposed, um, you might try to move your arm in a specific way, but it doesn't respond exactly as you think it's going to, or the muscles sort of contract in an unexpected way, or the signals from your eyes aren't reaching your visual cortex like quite how they're supposed to. So it's not so much blindness a lot of the time as it is like I can't see very well in the dark. And interestingly, if I for a while, if I closed my eyes while I was, say, taking a shower, I couldn't balance anymore, because your ocular system is connected to your vestibular system, and so the connection between those two things was affecting my balance. So I needed to be able to see to orient myself in the world,
Like coordinate and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay,
Exactly.
so balance is the issue, coordination.
And I had sort of generalized. It wasn't paralysis, thankfully, but I had no feeling in my lower limbs for about 6 months, and it sort of stretched from one foot all the way across up to my waist and down my other leg, and that can also and frequently results in paralysis for people, and being wheelchair bound in the latter stages of the disease was pretty common until about 10, 15 years ago.
Oh wow. Dang, that's very hard. I can't imagine. Yeah,
Yeah.
losing mobility. For me, I also have generalized. So there's two different kinds of myasthenia gravis. There's ocular, which is only affects like your vision, like double vision, and like some people can't like open their eyes because their eyelids, like ptosis is like the medical term, but basically your eyes are like kind of, you can't really lift them up because the muscle fatigueness. And for me, I struggle generalized. So it's like not just your eyes, but like various parts of your body. So I have to be on prednisone, like steroid treatment for my like lifetime treatment because I have generalized, not ocular. If you have ocular, it's easier to manage. But 70 to 80% of patients that have myasthenia gravis are generalized, not ocular. So it is something that's like harder for people, like going to work, and like having to go to school and all that, because like all these flare-ups happen like unexpectedly.
Right.
Which leads me to the next question, like about the hardest moments you have dealing with your disease. Like, do you have any?
Yeah, one, and that's and you mentioned like a key word there or phrase, which is flare up. And so I suffer from relapsing remitting MS,
Yeah.
and also MS is called multiple sclerosis, means that there need to be sort of multiple sites where this demyelination process has happened. So for me, it's happened in parts of my brain, it's happened in parts of my spine, and it's happened in parts of my neck, which is why I sort of check those areas with MRIs twice a year. But that relapsing remitting refers to the sort of temporality of the disease, which I might go months without a flare up or any kind of
Yeah, like
symptomatic
remission a little.
activity,
Yeah.
and I'll be in remission, but then I'll relapse. And that
Yeah.
relapse can be brought on by stress. It can be brought on by other
Environmental factors, like
exactly like
even like the heat. I usually do worse in summer because Texas heat is really, really straining on my eyes, like my vision. Like I was my hardest moment honestly is like similar to you. It's like the unexpectedness of like I like it just happens sometimes. I've been on a remission for about a year, but I've been feeling like a flare up recently, and it kind of is starting to affect my. It definitely affects my body image, and like how like I feel insecure about it because I don't want people to see it. Like I try to like mask the pain or whatever I'm dealing with, and it's really hard because I'm a singer songwriter and I love performing. And Wednesday I was performing my three originals, but I suddenly had like really bad double vision. I can't like see anyone in front of me, but I just pretended everything was fine. And I still had a good time, but it's just like those times that I just know like, oh, it's okay, it's bad. And like no one, like I don't want people to know. And it's that's the hardest part for me. And another part that's really hard is like treatment, because like these treatment don't work effectively as like for everyone. Like for me, I have to go on so many different treatments, and the side effects are insane. I have to take like 6 meningitis shot for like I don't know, is this 6 or 5? There's like I took a lot of meningitis shot for my current treatment called Ultomiris, but basically it's like a treatment IV infusion you get every 2 months,
mm-hmm.
and it's like $500,000. It's $500,000 without insurance, but thankfully I have a good insurance from my dad's side, so I can have a one source program to help me pay the copay, and then the insurance also cover it. So I have about like $60 every infusion I get, which is really good. Like $60 is not. But the thing with treatment is that sometimes your body also develops like what is it called, like a
Tolerance.
tolerance. Yeah, exactly. It develops a tolerance to your body, so it the treatment doesn't work anymore, and then you have to find another treatment. So that's the hardest part. And then also like the side effect is just that's something that I always have to struggle with. Like for me it's like headaches. Like I was sent to the ER when I got this treatment called IVIG. It's basically like a 2 hour treatment. Like someone come to my house and give me the IV infusion,
Mm-hmm.
and then an hour of observation, kind of a thing. And I was fine until the second day I was receiving the treatment. I started to like my head was just like throbbing in pain, and it continued throughout the night. I was sweating. I was like I was. It felt like I was just took a shower. I was like sweating and screaming in my bed. And the next day it still didn't go away. It was so intense I couldn't move, and I like started hyperventilating. And my mom and dad heard the screaming. It was just hours, and they came up to my bedroom. They just stood there, couldn't do anything, and just watched me just on my bed like struggling. And it was really hard because when you're going through a lot of like pain, you you really just I remember I told my mom like to like let me die. Like I literally told her like I can't. Like I just need a it's so much.
Yeah.
It's just like I feel like there's no ending to the pain and I can't like imagine. You're good. But basically it was a lot and then I just had to be sent to the ER and I think it was like a septic meningitis, basically like 1/4 of chance of surviving.
Mhm.
Basically your brain is like so inflamed to the point that it's like, it's like super big and like super
Right.
tender and
Right.
everything. So that definitely was not a good start. I was like 18, so I was in high school. It was not great, and I still graduated. I
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
graduated.
Very impressive.
Yeah, thank you. And but I would say like people that don't have access to the treatment, I feel really bad for them. But also, even now in America, like I have this healthcare, I have all these like resources. It doesn't mean like, oh, there's a solution for everyone because like not everyone's gonna experience the same effect. And for even for me, I still have a flare up while
Mhm.
being on this treatment. And now I'm starting to wonder like, oh, is this gonna work for me for the long term?
Mhm.
Like that's like the big issue. Like just because I have like treatment doesn't mean like, oh, now it's gonna work forever because life sometimes
Right.
just doesn't work the way you intended it to be. But yeah, do you have any like treatment or like experiences with
Yeah,
like
you brought up a few interesting things. One is that with these kinds of chronic and often autoimmune diseases, there's all sorts of symptoms that you experience that you may or may not be able to attribute to this formative disease. And to give you an example of one that wasn't, as far as I can tell, related to my MS, but I had migraines for 10 years. And I had terrible insomnia, and sleep was a very difficult thing for me for a very long time. And when I got my MS diagnosis, it was sort of assumed, oh, okay, we've found the source of all of these different problems you've been having. Turns out it wasn't really MS. It had a lot more to do with sleep apnea, and it had to do with anxiety and other things that can co-occur with MS. But I had to go see a different specialist in order to get checked out for that. And now, I mean, I spent 10 years changing my diet entirely, doing everything I could to prevent having headaches. I was taking like 10, 15 ibuprofen a day,
wow.
just to cope with constant headaches. Uh, and it ended up being something unrelated to my autoimmune disease.
Wow.
But it's very difficult for the doctors and the specialists to know where to draw these lines, and it's very easy, especially when you have these sort of overarching
Overlapping.
overlapping conditions. It's very difficult to know um, what's what's relevant to the given treatment, right? And so having to have several different specialists collaborate with each other in order to like take care of you can be very difficult. And in terms of treatment, when I was first diagnosed, I similarly had a medication that cost about $20,000 a year. Um,
Wow.
I was able to cover it with insurance, but just barely. But it required 3 self-administered injections a day.
Oh, yeah.
Um, Actually, 4. So every 3 hours, I had to take a different injection in a different part of my body. I got very good at knowing where to poke myself.
Oh,
And uh, but it was an experimental medication, and the only reason I was able to get onto it is because I was registered with an MS center in Seattle, and they got me on their trial, and that's why it wouldn't have been covered by my insurance otherwise, but because it was part of this trial, and I'm still on the same medication, but it's got better and better over the last 10 years, and so now I go in like you for a IV infusion twice a year. It takes about 6 or 7 hours. But I do a round of steroids and then a round of treatment, and it's much more manageable. Which,
like are you on a remission right now currently or?
yes, yeah, yeah. I've been in remission for a while.
How
Um,
long, like, if you
well, it's hard to say. Like I've had,
a little mini flare up?
yeah, I've had like
Mm.
I've had little mini flare ups, over the past few years.
Yeah, it's kind of like
But
sickness, right?
yeah, but they haven't. None of them have been hugely severe.
Mm.
And most of them have been new symptoms, not things that happened to me before.
Right.
So, and the scary thing about new symptoms is that means that there's some new nerve ending that is demyelinated.
Oh
That's not
no.
one of the original ones, right? So
Yeah.
like, if it's one of the original ones, they can like, oh, okay, yeah, we know what's causing this.
Yeah.
Uh, but if it's new, it may or may not fit the pattern.
Yeah, it's very interesting how our body like changes because autoimmune diseases are so just like it's hard to manage and navigate. Like you talked about how there's intersection and like things overlapping with symptoms. Like I mentioned to you, I have two autoimmune diseases. I have one called Graves' disease and I have one called Myasthenia gravis. And the vision problem, Graves' disease also can have some vision problems associated with it. There's something called thyroid eye disease, and so I'm not my doctors thought I have thyroid eye disease when my double vision wouldn't go away, but it turns out I don't have that, which is great because then if you have two things kind of overlapping, it's just like how are you gonna like make sure this medication's gonna make this disease worse, and then this is because Graves' disease is like supposedly makes your optic nerve like really thick. The optic nerve is like behind your eye that's control the movements. So it makes the optic nerve really big, and some people have like eyes that popping, kind of like popping
Oh,
out.
really?
Yeah, that's like thyroid eye disease. And for myasthenia gravis, it's the opposite, which is like your muscle is weaker. So like you
Mhm.
have problem moving your eyes, focusing, double vision, like your eyes not aligned, and then so one is weak and one is too strong.
Mhm.
So I have both, and my doctor is always like, we're not sure. It's really hard to like. It's like you're trying to like find this like your bomb, like you're trying to like find the right wire to cut, and you're just like, no, we can't cut this one. Oh, which one should we cut? It's kind of like that. I think that is one thing that definitely can affect your spirit because sometimes you think, oh, I found this treatment and I think it will work, but then you know, oops, that doesn't work. We gotta start again. And I think having to relearn all these like body functions of like how to just walk again, talk again, eat again, like these things are really hard too. Because like it affects my own like sense of value as a person, and it affects like my relationship with other people as well. And we talked about how it affects like our mental health. Do you have anything that you cope with? Like, what is like your coping mechanism when it comes to like dealing with mental health?
Well, that's a very complicated question, but
Yeah.
I would say that with regard to my autoimmune disease, it was very difficult for me initially because my grandmother, who I was close to, passed away from this disease, was wheelchair bound for the last 15 years of her life, and it was sort of assumed that I didn't have it because there's not a whole lot of evidence. There wasn't at the time a whole lot of evidence that MS was hereditary,
Sorry, let me just.
and that made things even more difficult um, in terms of getting a diagnosis because people discounted the fact that it might be MS because one, I was too young to be diagnosed with this. Typically, um, it's more common in women than it is in men, and it doesn't usually have this hereditary connection, and so I kind of fell outside of those
Box,
parameters,
yeah.
and so it wasn't. It took me about 2 years to get a formal diagnosis.
Yeah.
But you were mentioning, how meaningful it can be to get that diagnosis, which puts you in the right boxes, or hopefully the right boxes, to get certain kinds of treatment, to get seen by different kinds of specialists, right, to be represented by your insurance company, etc. But it can be really, uh, it's like it's not a home run. You haven't crossed the finish line a lot of the time because, as you said, that the diagnosis might shift, our bodies are constantly changing and our disease profiles are constantly changing, and so it might shift.
Yeah.
Relapsing remitting MS is famous for sort of, oh, you have it, and then we end up categorizing it as something else like 10 years down the line, 15 years down the line.
Mm-hmm.
And and really, it's a lot of the time it's a categorization of like, how does this affect your everyday life? Like, which brings me back to your question, which is how do I sort of cope with this? I had a support group in Seattle. I met a lot of great people who I played games with and played music with, who were all sort of suffering from this. Most of the people were 20 years older than me, so which was kind of an interesting opportunity to make connections with older generations and meet weird artists and like aging punks in Seattle at the time. At the same time, I met a lot of people who were attending the same hospitals as I was for other forms, and those turned into support networks as well. And being able to find activities that were never going to be affected, like no matter what, I could still play music. Even if I was like experiencing double vision, I didn't have to read, right, in order to like play what I was playing.
Right.
So, finding those activities that are never going to be affected can be really empowering. And then also like figuring out those things that you're really good at that you want to be able to do no matter what your symptoms are flaring at the time, and then finding other people to do them with so you can be in the room or interacting with folks who are creatively expressing themselves, even if you are not able to in those moments.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing. I was trying to move this over so I can see you a little more. But I think it's great that we are all like creative people here in College of PVFA. Like we all have our own quirks and like things that we enjoy about this life. For me, that in the past I've always had dreams of like doing something creative with like singing. Like I want to be a singer-songwriter, and I love playing music. I love just doing art. I paint, and then I have so many dreams, but it kind of made me, when I have this disease, I really thought that I wasn't able to do anything. I mean, when you're like pretty much paralyzed, you can't, you start to think your life a little differently. But I'm really thankful that I found hope and gratitude for every little things in life. Because sometimes when things are taken away from you, you realize how like grateful you're supposed to be when you have perfect vision. Just wake up every day and you don't have a headache. You don't have to take a bunch of medicines. You don't have to do IV. You don't have to go through so much pain. It makes me realize the days that I'm like, when I have remission, I'm like, wow, I'm so grateful for today.
Yeah.
I feel like for me it's like gratitude, and then I'm also a big believer. I became a believer last year. So I have a few encounters with God, and He definitely gave me a lot of comfort and hope in that I will be okay, in this lifetime. Even though there's still gonna be challenges and things that are gonna come at me, I will be okay at the end. And He definitely like provide me that comfort and knowing. And like even starting this podcast takes a lot of courage because you're talking about something really vulnerable, and I really appreciate you coming, as my professor. So honored. But yeah, basically, this is something I've always struggled to talk to people about because as an artist, I kind of have like my own thing about like I don't want people to use my vulnerability as a thing to attack me or like to twist it in a way like, oh, I don't want people to be sad for me. Like I want people to like me because of my artistry or because of my songs, but I don't want people to have like that sense of like, oh, I feel sorry for her. And like I want to be normal, I want to be treated equally, but at the same time I know I need help. And for the longest time I don't know how to balance between I need help and also like I'm independent, because I do want to be independent. I'm 22 right now, but I still feel like there's so like long roads ahead of me that I still need to go. MG, a lot of people, like you talked about how MS, most people are like female. For MG, guys that have MG are typically older men, like 70, 80, that have this disease. But for women, it's usually the young ones. Like it's the 20, 30-year olds that have this. And the youngest one can even be like 7 years old.
Oh wow.
Yes, but that's really rare cases. And I think that's something really interesting. There's definitely need to have some more like medical research about how like gender is like differently impacted and how treatments, we talked a little bit about it, but like treatments have different impact on like genders. Like male and female bodies, we respond to the treatments differently. And I think it's not being talked about a lot because I feel like every drug is all given to all like, female and men equally, but I think there's a difference, and I think it's not talked about enough.
And that can be a big issue when you're testing a drug, and now it's pretty standard practice that when you're doing clinical trials, you're trying to be as inclusive as possible, because gender isn't the only variable that
Yeah.
might be impactful. Age can often be impactful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like ethnic heredity can often be impactful. Like what part of the world your family comes from means that you've been like you have different genetic communities that you've been a part of, and that can really affect how people respond. But not just how people respond, but also how the sort of symptoms that people have, and sometimes those symptoms are really obvious, like, oh, this causes migraines in certain people, or this causes indigestion in certain people. But a lot of the time, it has to do with lifestyle. Like, oh, maybe this halts your disease progression, but maybe it makes you really tired. And for some people, that's okay, if they're taking it in the evening and they don't have to worry about like being sprightly and energetic in the morning. But if their job requires that, then that's an unreasonable symptom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes the symptoms are mood related. They could cause depression, they could cause anxiety, they could cause like panic attacks in people. For some people, these are sort of manageable symptoms that are better than the slow deterioration they might be experiencing. But for others, it's incredibly impactful to life. It's not just surviving, right? It's living, and that doesn't necessarily require comfort, but it requires being able to adapt to those new situations. I had a question for you, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
So what how has your like you're an artist in a lot of different ways, right?
Right, yeah.
But you see yourself as a singer songwriter. Like how has that been a strength for you in terms of building your current persona, but also dealing with your disease?
That's a good question. I think it gives me a lot of strength because it's something I love to do. And I think there's a power in art, music. It brings joy and it connects people of the community because I just feel like art and music, it's everyday life. Like even if you're an engineer, like you still have some kind of like artistry, like creativity in your life. And I think that even though this world wants us to be like in a certain like 9 to 5 or like do a certain thing, but for me, I've always been passionate about like singing, songwriting, and these things might not be like the mainstream path where people are taking. And it's definitely hard because I also have chronic illness, which should be a concern if I'm pursuing a more creative path. But I definitely think there's still a lot of intersectionality when it comes to like art and STEM art and like advocacy. Like, like there's like creative art programs for terminal ill kids and cancer kids or cancer patients. There's people that will bring in like art therapy, music therapy to bring healing, and I think it is really healing. So it makes me feel really good. But at the same time, I'm a perfectionist a little bit, so I try my best to not like that take over like the joy of doing it. So because if you're doing this as like a job, like a career, sometimes you have the burden of like I need to make it out, I need to like make a name or something. But I think what I'm focusing on is really less of like I need to be this grand person or like this celebrity, but like how can I help people and how can I help myself through that process? Because I've been through all these struggles and I know what it feels like to be in pain and in the dark. So I want to be a voice for people to share their stories, and I want to, through helping them, it makes me feel like I'm also seeing myself, when I was 17 and on the bed, remember?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's just like I wish, because my parents doesn't know about this. Like I'm not, I don't. They're huge supporters of me, of everything I do, and I'm really grateful for them. But at the same time, like we didn't know what was going on. We had no clue. So right now, I have more knowledge. I have more people. I have like connections with orgs. I think if I'm able to do things for the community, I would love to do that through my music, through my art, through my voice. Like that's just something that I think I'm really passionate about. And now finally with like faith, I have more strength to be like, I'm not doing this for my own good, but I'm doing this through him, and like I will have the strength, not like relying on myself, and I have the community of people that supports me. And I think that our College of PVFA, I really enjoy like the connections here I have. Like it's really different than other colleges, like engineer college. Like we professors doesn't have such like deep connection with like their students because they're like 300 of them or like 1,000 of them. So I'm really grateful for like the community I have right now, definitely. Because you mentioned that MS or community, I think I'm still struggling to find an MG org because it is such a rare disease
Right.
and it's really split up. But I really want to start. If there's no one gonna start it, I'm gonna be the one that's starting it. I think I can start really building a community of platform to, which is why I started this podcast. Like I want to have a community where people can talk about their struggles.
Yeah, and I was going to say that it's great that your artistry brings you joy, but you also love bringing joy to others. And in my work with you over the last couple of years, like I can see that you are you are cognizant and aware of the way in which your work affects others. You are cognizant and aware of the needs of your friends and your family and your audience. You just have a really good sense of what how how your work is landing with people, and how it creates this sense of connection, and that um, and speaking very practically is like I've been a working musician. Sometimes there are nights where I'm not getting any joy from
Yeah.
what I'm doing, but I recognize that I am giving joy, and I recognize that I am creating connection, and I'm giving moments to those in the audience. And the same thing is true of teaching. Like sometimes I'm having a wonderful time, and sometimes it's very
It
difficult.
kind of sucks.
But when you're able to see and be aware that hopefully you're making an impact or making a difference, like that's a different kind of awareness, right? It's
Right.
really it's so artists are not all just in it for that for the onstage joy. They're in it for the or they can be, and I think you are, and that
Thank
that
you.
like that is a strength in and of itself.
Oh, I'm so flattered. Thank you so much. That really means a lot to me because, I think I try my best to be positive and like be courageous all the time, but it is really hard when I don't think I have a, I think that I don't have like a big following or like a big presence, but I do feel like those numbers don't count. Like it really matters is the quality, not the quantity. So like the people I've met, like you and like other professors in this college, has been so nice to me, and they see the value when I'm just kind of a nobody, and I really appreciate that because like I really wish people can see the value in art and doing the things that I'm passionate about. It's just having people that can see the value it really makes me happy, and it keeps me motivated as well because if I do make it out there, it doesn't really matter anymore, because the things that I will think about, the people and things I will actually care about, is the people that stay with me and really valued me before I was a thing, I guess, like what the society measures as like success. But for me, it's just like, I'm glad that you really like said that you saw my character. I think I'm still growing, so there's definitely, for me, it's like, I understand humility, because like there's always things that you need to learn. There's always people that are gonna have experiences, and having empathy for those people, and that's like so crucial for me as a person. And I'm glad that you can see that in me, and that's something that I wanted to keep growing. Yeah.
Well, and keep that community growing, right?
Yeah, keep
Like
the community growing.
the people that inspire you, the people that bring you joy, the people that um, that are doing things that fascinate you and engage you in really interesting conversation. And like most hip hop artists who start from very humble beginnings and eventually make it. There's so many records of that, like post major label deal, where they're talking about how they're trying to bring their people along with them. Right?
Yeah.
And that might be neighborhood, that might be family, that might be church, that might be professions they were part of before. But like those fundamental connections that like define who you um, are incredibly impactful, and you're making those connections right now, and they're inspiring your work, and they're giving you helpers, so you do have people to like, to just be completely open with, and complain, even if you're trying to radiate positivity.
Yeah.
But that might not be what you're feeling in that moment.
But sometimes it pushes you through.
Oh, no, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And that's one of your coping mechanisms.
That is definitely mine.
I've never had that one. I'm never been particularly good at reading.
But we're all different.
Oh no, we're all different.
Yep.
I used to be a barista in a lot of coffee shops, and I was very surly and honestly kind of rude, which worked for some people and not for others. But I had a very difficult time radiating positivity when I was not having a good day. But I also met some of my favorite people that way, because they approach life similarly, and
like cynically, or
very cynically. It challenged me on my own cynicism, and I found people who were even more cynical than I was. And those people became one of my best friends in San Francisco. So.
Well, sometimes I feel like there's a sarcasm in that. Cynical is like,
Yeah, sometimes it's humorous. Sometimes it's joyful in a very
you're masking your pain through
right.
the cynical.
But that can still be a way to connect. Yeah.
Right, for sure.
I like calling attention to that.
I like that you're real with it though, because I feel like right now everything feels so fake. Like I said, I was a perfectionist, but really through the disease, through the weakness and everything, I realized that I'm just a human. Like I want to have a connection. I want something that grabs people's heart, not just their eyes for like 3 seconds. Like I really, if I want to do artistry, if I want to do music, I want to do something that really can be valuable. And so I have to be real. That's the first thing. That the first step forward is not being perfect, accepting it, and then move forward, being like, this today might suck and tomorrow might be good, or but life just happens. You just have to be real and honest with yourself, but also still keep that hope inside of you and keep going. That's just
yeah. And as I was gonna say, and I'm not a religious person, but I have but my giving yourself grace is a very important position to take.
okay.
Right?
We just need to use this.
Yeah.
One.
And really being aware of what you're capable of that day, And when I first moved to Texas, which I almost didn't do because I have a very strong heat sensitivity that has to do with my multiple sclerosis. And when I was offered a job in Texas, I spent a lot of time talking to doctors and my family and saying, should I even do this? I might die. This place is too much. And it was very difficult the first year I was here. And then I realized that no one ever goes outside and there's incredible air conditioning. And so I'm fine.
Yeah.
But had that not been the case, and it had been more foggy and muggy here than it turned out to be, I might not have stuck around. I might not have been able to. So I have to think very carefully about where I go. But in terms of like what am I capable of doing today? Like I might be experiencing symptoms. I might be incredibly tired. I might be experiencing like mental distress. So can I get all the work done today that I wanted to get done? No. Can I get some of it done? Like do the work, do the art to the extent that you can. Recognize that you're a different person each day, and sometimes you're 75% you, and sometimes you're 65% of what you can actually do, right? That's your stamina level if you're playing a video game.
So giving yourself grace.
Giving yourself grace, right? And saying like, okay, I can do 65% of what I wanted to do today based on where I am, and that's who I am today, and I accept that.
Right. Well, thank you so much for saying that. I think we all need to realize that sometimes, like, life, it's like not just like the big moments that you make it out or like you're like feeling yourself, but it's also like the moments where you give yourself a break from like everything and like realize that nothing matters that much for you to care about like how people think of you and judgments or all that. Well, I think this is probably the end of our podcast. I do want to like lead a little small prayer thing at the very end, if you would mind.
Sure.
Okay. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for letting us have this conversation today. I thank you for Dr. Campbell. He's one of my favorite professors, and he's been really kind and supportive of my podcast. And Lord, I just thank you for today and giving us the strength and courage to fight our own battles with mental health or our physical illnesses. And I pray that this podcast can reach to those people that are struggling in the dark, and I pray that you would give them comfort and the peace knowing that you'll be there for them, and just give them a little bit of peace and comfort in knowing that you will support them and give them the strength and courage to continue our everyday lives. Thank you, Lord. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Okay, thank you.
Of course. Thank you for showing me.
Unicorns gather. Thank you for listening to my podcast, My Dear Diary, Faith Journey with Myasthenia Gravis. And I want to thank Dr. Campbell for participating in this episode. There are some medical disclaimers in this video, so do be aware. If you want to join in on my podcast, or if you have any questions, please do reach out to me, comment or scan this QR code, and I'll see you in my next podcast episode.